Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the June 17, 2013 meeting of the Falmouth Board of Selectmen. We are returning from executive session. I invite you all to rise and join the board as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we begin with our agenda, I would remind anyone present, if you have a cell phone, please silence it or turn it off, or other electronic device. There's a variety of noisemakers. Please refrain from any private conversations here in the hearing room or immediately outside the doorway because it can interrupt the proceedings. We do have a speaker's policy, a copy of which is at the podium. Please adhere to it. And if you do leave before the meeting concludes, remember that we have business to conduct and we ask that you leave quietly. If you are recording the meeting with audio, you're certainly welcome to, but we ask that you identify yourself. If you choose to record the meeting using video, you will have to ask the board for permission. And so with that, I think we're prepared to, unless there's anyone here who is recording the meeting. Okay. First item on our agenda, announcements and proclamations. Mr. Murphy?
I'm going to recite a proclamation that I know is near and dear to the heart of our chairman. So, whereas the town of Falmouth has more than 150 licensed amateur operators who have demonstrated their value in public assistance by providing emergency radio communications, and whereas these amateur radio operators donate their services free of charge to the town in the interest of the citizens of the town as well as the world, and whereas these amateur radio operators are on alert for any emergency on Cape Cod and practice their communication skills during the American Radio Relay League, Inc. Field Day exercise, and whereas this year's Field Day exercise will take place on June the 22nd and June the 23rd, 2013 at the Barnstable County Fairgrounds. And now, therefore, we, Brent Putnam, Doug Jones, Mary Pat Flynn, Kevin Murphy, and Rebecca Moffett, as selectmen of the town of Falmouth, by the authority vested in us, do hereby proclaim week of June 17th to the 23rd, 2013 is Amateur Radio Week. There's a motion?
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? It's unanimous. And for those so interested, as noted by Mr. Murphy, the Amateur Radio Relay League, it is the national amateur radio organization, and every year they host this event where, as noted, the amateur radio operators pretty much practice a disaster situation, taking their radios into the field. This year it's this coming weekend, the 22nd and 23rd of June, and if you go up to the Barnstable County Fairgrounds, there's a whole bunch of them up there operating portable and mobile devices, using generators and solar panels for electricity, and basically testing their skills in the event of an emergency. And the public is certainly welcome to come up and see what it's all about. Do we have any other announcements from the board or the town manager's office? All right. And with that, the next item on our agenda is Falmouth Hospital expansion discussion and vote of support. Oh, before we begin, my apologies. So Mr. Jones, you'll notice, is not with us this evening. He will be joining us for our next meeting. He's away.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Kevin Cloud. I'm an attorney with Comment Law Firm here in Falmouth. Thank you for this opportunity to present to you this evening. It is my privilege to be here tonight representing Falmouth Hospital in connection with a proposed substantial expansion of the emergency department facilities. In just a moment, you'll hear from Michael Loff, the President and CEO of Cape Cod Healthcare, and Dr. John Mendelson, one of the emergency room physicians. The hospital comes before you this evening to let the community know about the intended improvements, and also to seek the selectmen's support for the project, specifically in the form of a resolution that the proposed location of the project is consistent with both the goals of the town's local comprehensive plan and the town's capital facilities and infrastructure planning. This is because the hospital expansion, being in excess of 10,000 square feet, requires Cape Cod Commission permitting. Since Falmouth does not have a land use vision map, it is a criteria under the Commission's minimum performance standards, that the applicant obtain the Selectmen's resolution. Essentially, the Commission wants to receive a local finding the project is appropriately cited with respect to the town's planning and infrastructure. I believe you have all received a copy of Attorney Ahmed's letter, dated June 7th, to Mr. Putnam and Mr. Russo, where all this has been explained in detail, referencing relevant portions of Falmouth's local comprehensive plan. As Mr. Ahmed noted, the expansion project will go through site plan review by the Planning Board. If you feel it would be useful, after hearing from Mr. Loff and Dr. Mendelson, for me to review the letter, I'd be happy to do so. In the meantime, Michael Loff.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and the board. Thank you very much for having me here tonight. My name is Michael Loff. I'm President and CEO of Cape Cod Healthcare. I'm here tonight to ask for your support for the improvements and the plan of those improvements at Falmouth Hospital's new emergency center. The new emergency center is, one, significant in the size and scope. It is an $11.4 million investment into the town of Falmouth. It reinforces Cape Cod Healthcare's commitment to this incredible organization that is nationally recognized for quality and service. I'm happy to say that as part of its 50th year anniversary birthday at Falmouth Hospital, this is part of an overall $50 million reinvestment back into our hospital. The community stands for so much, and we're so privileged to be a part of it. Falmouth Hospital is a jewel, and this emergency center will now reflect the wonderful care that is given every day by our physicians, nurses, support staff, as well as volunteers, local paramedics, and EMTs that come and support us. You'll hear from Dr. John Mendelson, who is a caregiver right now in the emergency center. In total, there will be a 19,000 square foot expansion. And why did we want to do that? Well, we wanted to do that because if we opened and moved out into the footprint that you see there, we would be able to expedite the time frame of the project. So rather than do it in stages that would run into multiple years, by creating new square footage, we'll be able to complete the project in a little over a year. 19,000 square foot, as I mentioned, which will now bring the rooms up to every normal grade now throughout the state at 165 square feet per room. To put that into perspective, right now at Falmouth Hospital, the size of the rooms are 85 square foot per. We aren't adding any rooms to the footprint. We're keeping the rooms, we're just doubling them in size. We also are creating a new trauma and resuscitation rooms, 2 of them, that are also 595 square feet. So when those folks in the community that need us the most, we have the capabilities, the technology, the people, and now the rooms to handle all of their emergent needs. As I mentioned, the project is $11.4 million. It was designed with the community in mind, the patient in mind specifically, as Dr. Mendelson will address. We are asking for your support. As I mentioned, this is 50 years at Falmouth Hospital, $50 million reinvestment. We've recently opened the Clark Cancer Center, in which radiation therapy is now provided close to people's homes in Falmouth, and thank you for your support. We've also expanded and improved women's imaging. Now we have state-of-the-art mammography and 3T MRI services at Falmouth Hospital. Again, thank you for your support. And right now we're also going through a $5 million project in which we're now making all the rooms at Falmouth Hospital private. It's what patients want. It's what the community of Falmouth deserves. We're really excited for the future. And again, on behalf of all of Cape Cod Healthcare, we thank you for your consideration of this request, which is endorsing and expediting this project to the Cape Cod Commission due to the size and scope. Thank you very much. Dr. Mendelson.
I'd like to thank the board and the chairman for having me. And Mr. Loff, I'd like to say we've really come under great direction since you've been there, and the hospital's moved in. There's really many positive changes, and I'd like to thank you and make that public. I've been here about a little over 16 years. When I got here, our volume was 24,000 patients a year. We were working at the time with single coverage physicians, meaning there would be one provider on at a time for many of the hours of the day. Currently, our volume is on the order of 40,000 visits per year. We often have 4 providers working at one time. We're doing that largely in the same space that we were there 15, 16 years ago. We've moved things around, shifted pieces of the puzzle, but largely we're still working within the same footprint. This means a lot of, that the department is very spread out. It means that communication, while we're able to maintain communication, it becomes a little bit of a trick. Patients often comment on, boy, you guys really move around a lot. And it's a little bit of a dance to get things done. We get it done, everybody's very committed, but we're pushing at the seams. One of the major things I think that would benefit not only from updating our equipment and updating our rooms, cleaning things up, but also is this idea of privacy. I mean, we're all familiar with the importance of privacy, and many of us have been in this in our emergency department, and we know that there's either a thin curtain, and sometimes that curtain doesn't, it's unable to be drawn because we have to observe people. That leaves patients right there, and they can see each other. You could look right across and see somebody. And here in Falmouth, where everybody knows everybody or knows somebody who knows somebody, you will be recognized. And I think that one of the things that we can offer our patients with a new footprint and a new layout is the kind of privacy that we all deserve. And then finally, I'd like to speak to the concept that we're probably all familiar with, anybody who reads the newspaper, is this concept of making care available to people. And I think that while we're not increasing our number of rooms, by making things more efficient, we can get people in the emergency department more quickly. We can allow them to be cared for more efficiently so they spend less time in the emergency department. And as we know, when people wait, they tend to leave. By getting things moving quickly, we can get greater access for the folks who need care. And the emergency department, as we all know from reading the papers, that emergency departments are becoming an integral part of our care. And it gives us the opportunity as clinicians to really offer the best for our friends and family here in Falmouth. Any questions that I can answer for you?
Any questions from the
Yeah,
board?
I have a question. I notice now in the emergency room, depending upon the seriousness of whatever brings you there, you either you can go to different areas. I mean, one to the triage area, I guess, or the area where it's cuts and things of that sort. How does this take care of people with whatever they present? Do you go to the same place and then stay in the same place as opposed to being
Part of
diverted?
the dance. That's part of the dance. I mean,
That's part of the
obviously,
dance?
we have 1, 2, 3, 4 basic areas, and so when one presents to triage, you will be sort of moved to one of those areas. Obviously, the sickest people will be in the central part of the emergency department, and as people are recognized to be a lower acuity, they may get moved to one place, and if somebody's of higher acuity than we expected, they may get moved. And then when shifts change, there's a lot of shuffling that's going on. One of the, how it's been presented to me is that this design here is rather collapsible, so that as the night goes on and we have fewer patients, instead of moving people around, we can just sort of cut off the space. So there's less inconvenience of having to move. You can work with the same nurse. You can have the same nurse for the whole shift. A lot of things that these little, I shouldn't say they're little, but these hidden benefits of efficiency to care.
Could I point out a couple key elements of the design that may help address that as well, that I failed to mention?
Excuse me, sure.
One of the areas is the continuity of the racetrack design. So physicians like Dr. Mendelsohn will now have direct eyesight into all of the patient rooms. That's a key from a safety and quality perspective. I think what's also important to note is privacy. Each room will have a door now, which is what Dr. Mendelsohn was describing. Down here, this is a new initiative that we've undertaken at Hyannis. It's been very successful. We will now have a segregated area that can be used specifically for those that have psychiatric illness and substance abuse. It's an epidemic in our communities, and I think this is one way in which we can give more dignified care to those folks that need it the most. I think over here we'll continue to have our urgent care or fast track section in existing space. So if you come in with a less acute issue, you will be triaged and sent here. But most of the 41,000 folks will all be in this major center, We also worked with the fire departments and EMTs to address how ambulances would pull in. So we have a new design, a new overhang where they'll pull directly in over an overhang, and we will be able to get them right in through here into the resuscitation rooms that I've defined and get them in to be seen immediately in the ER. So those are some of the enhancements that we've made to, one, better support the community, better support the physicians, and most of all, better support the patient.
I have another question too, like times like in the summer when there are a lot of people here and you might get a lot of people presenting themselves to the ER and you don't have beds, do you have that capacity of holding people in the ER for a while, or do you do something else?
We do a little bit of everything.
You do?
We do a little bit of everything, but our goal, I see, if you have to look at, there's a overriding goal, and correct me if I'm wrong, is we want people to walk in the door and get into bed. Door to doctor time. That's the key. You get them in and get them seen by a physician as quickly as possible. So the less people we have, the fewer people we have in the waiting room, the more people we can get into spaces and use our space efficiently. You know, that is the key. That ultimately winds up getting people in the door.
Could you just, one other question. Where is it actually located in terms of, say, the Faxon Center or the front entrance to the hospital?
Right now, currently, if you look at the plan, here's the Lily lobby, as we call it, the traditional patient drop-off. Here's the ER that comes in right now. Here's the main entrance into the hospital where you register, and also here's the ER. Right now, it's going to be a new expansion that'll be right below the circle, down below, and it'll go into that first parking lot. So it'll go out. We have enough parking across the campus in which it can be dispersed and met all the needs. And if we ever do run into an issue, the valet can certainly be an alternative. But again, the new construction minimizes not only the workflow issues internally, but really minimizes the impact it will have externally. It really fits nicely into that corridor directly outside of where the current emergency room is.
Well, I just think all the changes that you've made over the years since I've been around here for a while, I find have done nothing but improve both the access of people to the hospital and I'm sure the care itself. So this is a good thing for you and for the community.
Thank you so much, but we really, the board and the physicians and our employees deserve the credit, as does this incredible community that has supported this incredible institution for 50 years. But thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'd just like to make some comments, and the comments are that you know, for those of us who've grown up in this community, been here for many years, if you had a problem, you had to go to Toby Hospital in Wareham. Many folks in this community were born at Toby Hospital because Falmouth Hospital didn't exist at that time. It was a jewel when Falmouth Hospital came here, and it started to make Falmouth a world-class community. It was a little distressing about 10 to 15 years ago when hospitals were merging throughout the state and the country, and Falmouth Hospital was on the chopping block. And looking back in hindsight, we were so lucky as a community to have saved this hospital, because as we've seen, the patient beds in the beds in that hospital are continuously full. And that's not because of over-treating folks. It's because the folks have realized they can get quality care here in their own community. I'd like to say that these are some areas where this board can actually stand up and be counted because of the Cape Cod Commission. That this is some areas where this doesn't have a regional impact. We've made a gallant effort just recently to make sure that we provided the secondary means of egress to that facility through the steamship parking lot. We've continued to protect that. I'd like to say that you know, we continue to see our aging population in this community. That aging population, it requires more medical needs. We continue to have senior facilities as well as long-term facilities in this community. And urgent care continues to be something that's important. I know that someday, whether I have an option to go to a Boston hospital or whatever, I'm not going to have that option if I need urgent care. That option is at Falmouth Hospital. And I take my hat off to Falmouth Hospital for looking forward in the opportunity to be able to treat folks in their own community. let's look at other communities like Mashpee that have health centers, but they don't have a hospital. And this is a vital part of our community. I appreciate this expansion. I know that the regional impact that this will have will be a positive regional impact, because it's going to impact everyone in this community, because we have an opportunity to make sure that we get treated fairly, get treated fast, and I'm sure it will save some lives. And that's what it's all about. As a member of the board, I think that this is something that is a no-brainer, that I see out there. Our representative from the Cape Cod Commission is here as well. I hope he's going to hear us loud and clear. I know Mrs. Flynn is one of the county commissioners, but I want to have this board send a message loud and clear that this is something that we would like to see fast-tracked, and we would like to see, instead of you spending a lot of money to do this permitting, put that money into that facility so everyone in this community benefits. Thank you.
Anyone else? Is there any member of the public who'd like to ask a question or speak?
Nancy Hayward, West Falmouth, Precinct 5. I'm one of those elder members of the community who was mentioned. And my question has to do with removal of parking spaces. My interest in speaking to this when I came into this meeting was whether or not this was going to require parking lot expansion, and I had some comments to make on that. But now what I think I hear you saying is that I normally come up from, I come from Terhune.
Ms. Hayward, if you could just speak into the microphone, because the folks at home won't be able to hear you.
I can't point to the thing. I come up Terhune, and thank you, I make a left turn into what used to be clearly labeled Faxon Center, but that's not what it says now. But where I go is, yes, I think so. And so if I come up, that somehow doesn't look, all right. If I come from Terhune and come over here and I make a right turn and I want to go into the door that I thought was to the right of the cancer center.
Right here.
Okay, so then I either, I take an elevator up to the, and so this parking lot is going to stay in absolutely the same place. This is not going to be the parking lot that you're going to. Correct. All right, fine, because that's in a reasonable distance to get into like the physical therapy department.
And that is this area right here.
If you could just, Ms. Hayward, are you through with your question? Or?
Yes, okay. I just want to know that the parking lot that and my comment was that that's close so you can walk into where the physical therapy department is. And I don't consider that I need a handicap parking space, but I don't want to have to walk a mile to get there.
If you'd like to respond, you're welcome to. Just to the microphone so that folks at home can hear.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
The intent is to keep, thank you, ma'am. The intent is to keep the parking as is. The parking, the surface parking that's immediately in front of the Clark Cancer Center, and as well as where the current registration area is, will remain intact.
I just would feel remiss that if we started this vote and I hadn't commented to all of you that are here this evening, that I think one of our jewels in the town of Falmouth is Falmouth Hospital. And I think because of your reputation, you probably attract a very high level of physicians who would love to live in Falmouth and to work at Falmouth Hospital. And I think now you have given another reason why people would come and would be part of your organization, and it continues to happen. There is never anything that has happened at the Falmouth Hospital that has gone either flat or negative. It has always risen and has been more than what people believe that the residents of Falmouth have available. And I just need to compliment all of you, and when I read about this, I thought there's one more thing that they're doing at that Falmouth Hospital that we'll all be proud of, so thank you very much.
Anyone else? All right, with that,
I'll make a motion.
if you'd like, go ahead.
I would move to support the Falmouth Hospital Emergency Department expansion as presented.
Can we include the language that the proposed location is consistent with both the goals of the town's local comprehensive plan and the town's capital facilities and infrastructure planning?
I'm okay with that.
All right, so we have a motion?
I second.
We have a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? It's unanimous. Thank you,
Thank you
gentlemen.
very much.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda, we have interviews for various committees. And first on our agenda, we have the Water Quality Management Committee. We have two applicants, John Waterbury, Darlene Domingos. Mr. Waterbury?
John Waterbury, Precinct 1. I would like very much if you saw fit to put me on as a member of that committee. I've been very interested in wastewater issues for a number of years, served on the Board of Health and on a number of committees that have been associated with sewer issues over the years, the implementation of the new Silver Beach package treatment plant, and a variety of other things. And think that the expertise that I have professionally as a microbiologist would serve the committee well.
All right, questions from the board?
One question, and there's a lot of discussion in this community, John, about the alternatives. Can you give me a little bit of your thoughts on alternatives, the appropriateness, and whether or not, rather than me lead the question, your opinion of alternatives and whether they work and whether they would work in the whole community?
Well, I think they will play a very important part as we go through this process. They may not prove to be the primary instrument that gets us where we need to go, but they certainly are going to have a role. And I think all of them show considerable promise. And I think one of the things that committee is doing now is in a very deliberate way are going about these demonstration projects to actually try and show what each of these technologies can do for us. And so where one technology might not be appropriate right now next to the water, it might be extremely valuable up in the upper watersheds as we go along. So I do think it's a critical part of how we proceed that we go through and look at each of these and demonstrate what they're capable of doing.
Thank you.
Would you explain 2 or 3 of the alternatives?
Well, I mean, the classic are the alternative septic systems, which we see all the time on the Board of Health, things like the Nitrex system, which get very good denitrification. Those are individual on-site systems. They've been looking at reactive barriers, which are barriers that you put in the ground, which denitrify as water passes through them. They've been looking at inlet widening, which simply increases the flushing out into the bays. And they've been looking at aquaculture, the use of oysters to take up nitrogen and filtered water. So I think that's sort of the suite of things that have been looked at.
John, I know that you've been involved in this issue since the days of the Nutrient Management Committee that used to meet here many years ago. followed by the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Committee, and now with the Water Quality Management Committee. And how would you assess the progress that the town has made over the period of 6 or 7 years now in dealing with this issue?
I think we've made an enormous amount of progress. The state pushed us into a corner when they gave us the original criteria for CWMP. And they basically said, you're going to sewer everything from the water up to 151. And that just obviously was not a workable solution. So we've made enormous progress in dealing with and chatting with DEP about how we can approach this problem incrementally as we can afford steps in it. And I think we now have DEP on board. I think they're working very closely with the town. And I think they're very pleased with the imaginative approach that Falmouth has taken to wastewater issues.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? All right. Thank you, Mr. Waterbury. Darlene Domingos? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Darlene Domingos, and I live on Oyster Pond Road. I've been a Falmouth resident for 10 years, and I have been a water quality professional for over 25 years. I started out as a wastewater treatment plant chemist, and then went on to run the industrial pretreatment program for the city of Brockton, where I went out and monitored industries to make sure that they were complying with the Clean Water Act. I've since gone to managing the wastewater treatment plant for the city of Taunton, and the director of both the Taunton and Brockton industrial pretreatment programs, still overseeing the industries in both those towns. I do a lot of outreach work with the Taunton River Watershed Alliance. We do a lot of water quality monitoring. We do a lot of outreach with the school system, with young kids, with teaching them things about nutrient loading and things that are detrimental to the sewer systems, fats, oils, and greases, and things that they can do at home. We run a household hazardous waste day, so have a lot of outreach and public contact. And I would like to serve on your Water Quality Management Committee.
Questions from the board?
I'll ask the same question. What's your thoughts on alternatives as we move forward?
I find the alternatives can be used only in isolated places. I think in general, that's probably not the solution. I think it's a combination of many things. Certainly, you can use like composting toilets in only certain locations, maybe isolated locations, but I think in dense areas, you probably need to look at sewer as being the best route to really take care of the water. But then in places where people have an acre of land or have a little more space, I think septic systems that are good septic systems that are taken care of and regularly serviced can work fine. So I really think it's a mixed thing, and each area has to be looked at differently.
In specific areas, permanent reactive barriers to protect our waterways, things like that, increasing the size of
I like the idea of increasing the size to flush out the bays, like Great Pond and that area.
Okay, thank you.
As you were telling us about your background, you commented on Brockton and Taunton. And I think the thing that is unique about Falmouth is the number of estuaries that we have. And I believe we're at the top of the list in comparison to other places on the Cape.
Absolutely.
So therefore, I believe our problems are unique. And I'm thinking about your background, and I'm not thinking of estuaries when I say Taunton or Brockton. And it really is the estuaries that are, that is what the demand and how we're going to be solving this problem. So how are you bringing that experience from, say, a more cosmopolitan area to an area that is, we're really concerned about our estuaries?
Well, I understand water quality issues. I understand nitrogen loading, phosphorus loadings, and nutrient damage, even though I don't work in necessarily an estuary area. Taunton River Watershed is the largest watershed in the state of Massachusetts. So there are a lot of waterways there. There's a lot of rivers there. And I understand sewer systems and how sewer systems work and how sewage is detrimental to the environment. So I could bring that perspective to the position.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, my question was kind of similar to Ms. Moffat's question, and that is you've had some very practical hands-on supervisory managerial experience. How do you take that and then translate that to a committee that is really planning for the future and actually planning to test various alternatives and test other systems? And how do you translate the practical experience to the large-scale planning effort that the committee has?
Well, one thing I would like to look at is if, what kind of water quality testing they've done in certain areas and sort of map that out to the technologies that exist there right now, for instance, and they could have certain areas that have a lot of nutrient loading problems, and looking at the map of that area, is it an area with septic systems? What are the age of the septic systems? When was the last time Title V inspection was done in that area? So maybe sort of mapping it out more on a practical kind of level and see what is existing there and maybe could be failing or could be showing signs of failure.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? No. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have one position, one vacancy for a 3-year term that would expire on June 30, 2016. We could take action this evening if the board so desired. We could also take action. Our next meeting, July 1, would be the first day of the new term, so we could take action that evening as well. How would the board like to proceed?
I'd like to take the vote this evening.
I would agree.
All right. Are we prepared then to take a vote?
I'll make a motion to put both names in a nomination.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and second to put both names into nomination. Any discussion on the motion?
I'd like to make some discussion on the motion. I think that we have two excellent candidates here. And whomever gets appointed, I would hope that the other candidate would stay involved, because this is a problem in our community that it's going to take a generation to solve, if in fact it's solved in one generation. So I surely don't want to turn off anybody that's inclined to volunteer for this committee, because it's a monumental task. And so I just want to say that I think we have two excellent candidates. Thank you.
Okay. Motion and second to put both names into nomination. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, we'll go down the table then. Roll call. Ms. Moffett?
John Waterbury.
Mr. Murphy?
Waterbury.
Ms. Flynn?
Waterbury.
And I'll make it unanimous, Mr. Waterbury. Thank you very much, Ms. Domingos, for applying. We do appreciate your interest. Mr. Waterbury, I think he ran off to the the Board of Health meeting, so congratulations to him.
Do follow the Mr. Murphy's suggestions to stay involved. You have a lot of great experience. Good.
Thank you.
All right. Next on our agenda, we have the South Cape Beach State Park Advisory Committee. This is one vacancy. Our prior representative, former Selectman Kerry Murphy, had reached his term limit. This term would be beginning on July 1 and extend until June 30, 2016. We have Donald Clark here this evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Donald Clark, 6 Salt Hay Road, East Falmouth.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you'd like to be our representative?
Thank you. I'm a retired community banker. I live on Hamlin Pond, somewhat of a nature nut. I'm very involved now with Webner and the Friends Committee. And just recently, I donated half dozen birdhouses. We erected down at South Cape Beach, and to my delight, within 2 weeks, when the little tree swallows arrived, they occupied the boxes and they're nesting, and that's going to stimulate us to get a lot more for next year. They're wonderful little birds that have suffered somewhat because of their natural habitat of nesting in old trees and tree hollows and that, and storms and homeowners and whatnot have removed so much of it, but they quite like the nesting boxes. And they eat the bugs all day that bug us. So they're wonderful things. I think that we can really make an impact. This is going to be a project going to go a long way. An impact to making people more comfortable in the summer. I'm also a member of the Partners Committee with the Mashpee, the official name, the Mashpee National Wildlife Refuge. I'm active in that. In fact, we have a meeting on next Wednesday for the day, and I enjoy it. I'm retired, I have the time for it, and would do my best to be an honorable representative of the town on that committee, if you should consider me. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
You mentioned that you have been somewhat involved with South Cape Beach?
Yes.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit more about how you are engaged with activities there?
Well-
And why you're interested in having this position?
Surely. The primary reason I'm interested, I would like to, the project that I'm involved in right now is a very, very worthwhile one, that there is such a need. They don't have the budgets for the houses. I'm going to be working on that for the nesting boxes. It's a commitment that I enjoy. I live basically there, living on the pond and in the bay, and I have a great interest in what goes on there. And would just like to try and be a positive force. And hopefully, I can be.
Anyone else? All right. How would the board like to proceed?
Make a motion to appoint.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to appoint Mr. Clark to a term ending June 30, 2016. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Thank you for your
opposition?
confidence. I'll work
Unanimous.
real hard.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you will.
All right. Next on our agenda, we have the Design Review Committee. There are 3 vacancies, and we have, sorry, I have a note here in the file. We have one applicant, Linda Clark, has asked to reschedule, so we will have to take this up at another time. And she's the only applicant for that position at this time. And then we have the Affordable Housing Committee. We have 2 vacancies, a term limit, a term expiring June 30, 2015, and a term expiring June 30, 2016. Edward Curley. Before the board begins, I would like to make the note that Mr. Curley is one of my neighbors, and if anyone has any objection to me chairing at this time, please say so.
Not at all.
All right, then. Mr. Curley, if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about yourself and why you'd like to be our representative on the Affordable Housing Committee.
Sure. I'm only a one-year resident of Falmouth, but I used to come here for 20 years with my family and stay in Meganzet for a couple of weeks each summer. I've loved Falmouth, and when it came time for me to sort of semi-retire from my job in New Jersey, this is where my wife and I ended up buying our house. I want to help out and get involved. I've been reading the paper and trying to learn about the town and the issues and so forth. I volunteer 1 week each month at my church to help out as with a charitable society that makes home visits and tries to provide help to residents of Falmouth who need assistance with their rent or their utilities. I've seen how high rents can be in town. I'm familiar with the cost of living at the Cape. My wife and I chose Falmouth because we like a diverse community, and I just thought with the church work that I'm doing that this chance to get on the Affordable Housing Committee would be a chance for me to learn more about the issues that are important to the town. I can't speak much to them now. I've been trying to read the paper and keep up a little bit, but essentially I just think it's a place where I can put some of my time and energy and maybe be a help in town.
Okay, questions from the board?
Nope, I think it's noble to volunteer for this committee. I make a,
Okay, I have a question.
right.
I'm just curious about why you choose affordable housing, because you mentioned that you're very organized and that you do follow through on things, which is very important if you're going to be on a committee. and you also are somebody that wants to get things done. So how do you think you're going to be able to, with those talents and skills, how that you can be effective on an affordable housing committee?
Well, I'm not sure, but I assume that projects will come before the committee for discussion, recommendations from the selectmen or from other areas of town, and that we'll be asked to deliberate, collect information, do research, present it coherently in some way in a report, oral or written. Those are the ways I think I could contribute. I like to get involved with an issue and stay with it and see it to the end.
For those of us familiar with the St. Vincent de Paul group, I'm very familiar with it, and it's right up the alley of affordable housing, whether it be apartments or helping folks with their rent or whatever it might be. So I'm very aware that that group, as a group itself, is very concerned about affordable housing. So I make a motion to appoint, I believe it's a one-year term, expired on 6/30, pardon me, one term, a two-year term to 6/30/16. I mean, that would be the three-year term, 6/30/16.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to appoint Mr. Curley to the term expiring June 30, 2016. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. And that brings us to committee reappointments. We have 5 individuals who have expressed a desire to be reappointed to their committees. For the Agricultural Commission, Deborah Lee Rogers. For the Coastal Pond Management Committee, Charles McCaffrey. For the Design Review Committee, John Sullivan. For the Energy Committee, David Jewett. For the Golf Advisory Committee, Margaret Echolm. I will say that for the Energy Committee, I would actually like to have the opportunity to interview Mr. Jewett, given the recent controversy surrounding the Energy Committee's, or at least the chair of the Energy Committee, and that situation with the wind turbines. But as for the others, I have no objection to reappointment, and there's no one else at this point interested in these positions.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that we approve the terms in the committees and the appointments of the following committees. The Agricultural Commission, Deborah Lee Rogers for a term expiring 6/30/16. Coastal Pond Management Committee, Charles McCaffrey, a term expiring 6/30/16. Design Review Committee, John Sullivan, a term expiring 6/30/16. The Golf Advisory Committee, Margaret Echolm, a term expiring at 6/30/16.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a motion and a second? Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Unanimous.
And Mr. Chairman, I do agree. I'd like to interview, at least hear from the Energy Committee candidate.
All right, then we can schedule Mr. Jewett hopefully on July 1. And that concludes our committee reappointments for this evening, appointments and reappointments. I would like to very quickly let the public know that there are a number of vacancies available still. The Affirmative Action Committee has 3 vacancies. The Affordable Housing Committee still has 1 vacancy. The Bikeways Committee has 1 vacancy. The Building Code Board of Appeals, this is a different organization, is not the Zoning Board of Appeals, but the Building Code Board of Appeals has 2 vacancies. The Buzzards Bay Action Committee has 2 vacancies. The Cable Advisory Committee has 2 vacancies. The Cape Light Compact has 1 vacancy. Coastal Management Committee has 5 vacancies. The Conservation Commission has 2 vacancies. The Cultural Council has 6 vacancies. The Design Review Committee has 3 vacancies. The Commission on Disabilities has 1 vacancy. The Finance Committee has 1 vacancy. Historic Districts Commission has 3 vacancies. Historical Commission has 1 vacancy. Human Services Committee has 4 vacancies. Retirement Board has 1 vacancy. The School Committee has 1 vacancy. The Solid Waste Advisory Committee has 1 vacancy. The Substance Abuse Commission has 5 vacancies. The Town Building Committee has 3 vacancies, and the Transportation Management Committee has 3 vacancies. So anyone so interested in any of these committees are certainly welcome to apply in the Town Manager's office and schedule an interview with the board. And next on our agenda is a vote to participate in the LED streetlight conversion. This was continued from our June 3rd meeting. Good evening and welcome back.
Good to see you again. Kevin Galligan, I'm Program Manager with the Cape Light Compact. I believe following your last meeting, I provided some follow-up materials to the Town Administrator's Office, which I believe were forwarded to you. Also, I've been in discussion with your Town Engineer, Peter McConaughey, who's here today. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you do have them.
No, I don't have a question, but I want to make a comment that having had the discussion the last time and actually really looking into this a lot more in depth, I realized that this is a one-time opportunity for us if we want to change from what we have now to these LED lights. And that I also understand from talking to the town manager that that it's important for us to really opt in, because you can always opt out at a later time if for some reason we would choose to do that. Or if we would find over a short period of time that we might want to change some things in terms of the lighting, whether it's the number of certain lights or the type from an acorn to a shoebox or whatever, that we could file a supplemental. And so, but if we don't opt in now, we're done. It's over. We can't participate at all. So we had something else like that come up fairly recently, that it was better to make a decision and get in at the beginning and not lose the opportunity, because there are opportunities at the other end, as I mentioned, either opting out or making a supplemental. And the other piece was to really take a look at Exhibit A, which is which you did provide to us today, and it's really kind of a boring list of all the streets in Falmouth, but nevertheless, it makes you realize how many streetlights we really have and where they are. So that was kind of important. So I think that's important to our discussion, that we realize the importance of taking some action at this time.
It certainly isn't anything with you, Mr. Kevin Galligan, but I would like to hear from our engineer.
Absolutely.
And I certainly don't mean anything. Okay. I would just like to hear your comments about this.
As you know, Peter McConaughey, Town Engineer. As you know, this is with the streetlights is not a new subject. It's a subject that's been around for several years. In 2009, we've come a long way. In 2009, we were actually talking about red capping some lights, and there was a large public attendance the evenings that came up, because when they found out the actual savings that were going to happen with our street lighting, it was approximately close to 50% of the lights. It was a large amount of lights. So that decision, we fell back on that decision, and we started looking at other alternatives. There's approximately 2,900 lights, 29 to 3,000 lights in the area. In 2010, we had 2 projects that we worked with, street light conversion projects. Town had approximately 55, 56 mercury vapor lights within the Woods Hole area, the downtown area, some on Main Street. They've all been replaced with those projects, and also there's some other projects that were up along Palmer Avenue in this area that were replaced. So that alone in the 2010 timeframe, 2011 timeframe, saved the town approximately $24,000 a year, just for 250 lights. It was approximately 250 lights or so. So I believe doing a town-wide initiative on this, that I do believe it will be, it'll be very beneficial to the town. I know that you did receive a lot of the documentation from the Cape Light Compact, but one of the photos clearly shows there's two types of lights here, a lower lumen and a higher lumen light. It clearly shows the street lighting on the roadway. And if you look at the lighting, the actual lighting on the photo compared to the lighting that emits onto the street, there's a big difference. So I think what we should be looking at, if we have sidewalks and crosswalk areas, we should be looking at the brighter areas, the brighter lumens in those areas for people crossing the sidewalks in the evening or in the night. But there's a clear difference on it. You can see the clear difference on the between the two streetlights. And this past winter, we've done 2 demonstration projects, one in a commercial area on the in front of the Gus Canty Center on Main Street, and a second area down on Seacoast Shores. Those areas were chosen. The Main Street area was chosen because there was I think it was a fatality actually in that area last year in front of John's Liquor, and it was a dimly lit area with the street lights. So that was chosen as for one of the areas over in front of the Gus Canty Center. And the other area was on Seacoast Shores. We tried to pick an area that was flat, it was more flat, had a lot of high tree canopy in the area so that the lights could really be seen if anyone had any comments. And I don't believe we had received too many comments on the demonstration. Okay. So I do believe it's a positive, it's an absolute positive direction that would be going with these street lights.
Mr. Murphy.
Peter, can you give us an idea of the 2,900 lights? How many of those are on major roads and intersections and i.e. like crosswalks versus how many are in neighborhood side streets? Because I think that's where we could get some areas of concern on just some side streets. But there's a reason we put lights on intersections. Correct. And it's for safety reasons, and typically those areas are I shouldn't say as populated, but there is a definite need there besides security and things of that nature. So do you have an idea of the difference in the number?
I don't have a breakout of the actual numbers. Actually, I think that the list that we had sent out, you can categorize it from street name A to Z, and you can come up with the different roadways. But I do remember during when they were talking about the red capping, that some of those lights, some of them were picked up on dangerous curves on Palmer Ave, on Sandwich Road. Some of those lights were a big concern about the lumens that they portrayed down. So I would imagine what I'd like to see is on the main streets, the populated main streets, either with vehicles or pedestrians or crosswalks, I'd like to see a brighter lumen in that area. But I don't have the actual breakouts. We could get that for you, and actually our GIS department back in 2009 did create some maps and showed the areas of town where all the street lights where they are, and actually when you see them, you see a lot of them bundled together in certain areas of the town. There's more street lights in certain areas of the town than others.
My follow-up is, if we make a motion tonight to participate in this program, and I don't know whether it's going to be Peter or you, Kevin, can we say that we make a motion to do the 6,000 K color, which is the brighter light, in main roads and intersections and things of crosswalks, and go to the 43K color in neighborhoods where it's not as obtrusive? Is that going to be possible to do that as part of the bid? Just make a blanket statement like that?
Absolutely. Through your use of that Exhibit A, right now it's a blank page to the contract, but clearly if that's the direction the town wanted to choose, put it in there. I'm rounding all of those up. Some towns have left it blank, some have been very specific, but that's actually a very good general indicator for us to then put out to the bidders, who are the experts in this. I mean, we've learned a lot about this over the years, but frankly, let them tell us how they would respond to that, and I'm sure you'd be happy to see that, we will hold them to it, not just if it's that they say they put a 6,000 up. We want all of us to be completely happy with this. So we've got them on a contract, not only to do it right, but to keep them on board through an O&M contract. So I can assure you that those conditions, however you write them, will be responded to.
Okay, can I ask one more follow-up?
Sure.
Do we still have the opportunity, if we did those, to do shielding on those if they are, in fact, affect neighbors and things of that nature?
Exactly. What we've learned through the demonstration project is there are two ways of doing shielding. One is factory installed. So if you designate now, certain residential tight roadways that you want factory procured, installed lights, you'll have that option. However, if you see that the contractor, installed what you wanted, but you really could use some shielding, what we did just last Wednesday night, I believe it was, in Provincetown, we installed what are called field-installed shields. You get right up on the bucket truck and you affix them right to the light. And it was a dramatic change by going from a broad display of light to, once those were installed, it just cut it right off from the individual's home. And you can do full shielding, or what I've also learned from this is you can do half shielding. So there's a lot of, again, with LEDs, I think I mentioned a few weeks, there's quite a good amount of tailoring that can be done. I mean, it's always better to be putting as much up front as you can, but I would say if we miss it on a few, we will be holding the contractor to adjust things for a period of time.
Okay, I have two questions, actually. How much brighter is the 6,000 Kelvin to the 43? And then what about the difference in cost and maintenance for either, for each?
The color temperature is not a performance metric that has anything to do with the brightness of the light. If you might have noticed this little performance metric sheet that I sent along, again, thanks to the chairman who had brought up his online a few weeks ago. I mean, it really is important to know that there are a lot of metrics, if you will, or characteristics with lighting. So the goal we have with the illumination is to be equal to what you have today, unless you indicate you want to be a little bit brighter on some of the major roadways, indicate those. But from a color temperature, that is much more of a personal, the way an eye sees a light, in terms of some people like it warmer, some people like it crisper. It really does come down to personal preference. But we're seeing that on a nationwide basis, the 4,000, 4,300 is pretty much a normal, neutral light, whereas the 6,000 gives you a lot better efficiency and a lot crisper color. So things are more reflective with it, but it's not really a lumens. I don't want to give you a whole course on lighting, but there are a lot of aspects to it.
And then how about the difference, is there a difference in cost of maintaining?
There should not be.
No.
Again, what we're seeing, if you're in the range of between 3,500 Kelvin, which on that scale, you can see it's much more in the warmer light, all the way up to 6,000, those are stock items. They're pretty standard. If you were to vary on a special order below that, then there might be some additional cost.
Okay, one other question then. What size Kelvin is the one at the Dennis Police Station?
At the Dennis Police Station.
Yeah.
Those are all part of the demonstration project. Those are 6,000 Kelvin.
6,000.
Correct.
Because I can remember the brightness of that, or the lumen, that having been there several times. Not for the
I'd like to make
for
a
all the
personal-
right reasons, by the way.
I'd like to make a personal comment. I think over a period of years of listening to people give us advice on things that we should do, I have never met a gentleman such as Mr. Galligan that has an answer that just simply takes care of all of our needs. I mean, if you want it to flicker, it flickers. If you don't want it to, you have answered every single question that I have been paying attention to and given us a positive answer. We just need to make up our minds.
Thank you very much.
I would like to note, from my perspective, there are two issues, and I want to thank there are folks from the general public who have submitted some emails and some statements. And the two issues that I think have been consistent, one of them is the color. And there are, of course, some folks have cited various studies that raise questions about how the color can affect our own circadian rhythms, our ability to sleep at night versus being kept up all night by the glare outside the window. As well as, it wasn't mentioned that I can recall, but there are studies that raised concerns about nighttime lighting and how it affects wildlife. So color is one of the issues, and of course the glare and the shielding is another one. It's good to hear that these can be retrofitted after the fact if that does seem to be a problem. I think from my perspective, I would rather see the warmer colors across town. I think the 6,000 Kelvin is a bluer color, and it's going to be, I think, a very stark, it may be almost shocking, I think, to some folks. And the best analogy that I can think of is when you're driving down the street at night, sometimes you see these cars that appear to have blue headlights.
They do.
And those are a higher, I guess, more than 6,000 or 7,000 Kelvin in terms of a color tone versus our own, your average car lights are more in the 4,000 range, I think, if I'm correct. And so I know there are folks who have complained about the bluer color of the headlights, and I've even heard, I don't know if there's actually been any studies, but I've heard some anecdotal information at least that some folks have developed headaches and such from having to deal with those kind of headlights. So it's certainly something for the board to consider, that the output of the light, the brightness of the light, is not dependent upon the color of the light. And certainly if we want to make sure that an intersection is properly lit, we can do that and still have a warmer light, something in the range of 4,000 or even lower. Is it possible to get, say, a 3,000 Kelvin lamp? Or
The standard products that we're seeing is between 3,500 Kelvin up to the 6,000.
Okay.
So if you go below 35, you're going to have just a few products available.
Okay. Now, at the 3,500 Kelvin range, how does that compare to what we might see right now with the sodium vapor lamps on the streets?
The sodium vapor lights, the high-pressure sodium, are in the, I meant to put that on this chart, but they're in the 2,000 color temperature.
So no matter what we put into place, it's going to be a whiter light than what we're used to seeing?
Absolutely.
Okay. So we might want to actually err on the side of caution and keep this as towards the lower color range, towards the 3,000 or 3,500 Kelvin, just so that folks are not surprised by the significant difference.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know why they'd be surprised. We had a demonstration project in this community. It was very public. We've said multiple times where these lights are. I even went back out since this meeting and looked at those lights. We have not had one call, to the best of my knowledge, of complaint about those lights in either location. One was on Seacoast Shores, as well as in front of the Recreation Department. I will agree with you that there is some speculation in regard to whether it would affect people's sleep patterns. But again, if we put these lights, the lower luminance, on in side streets versus main streets, and I just want to read what it says here about the color. 4,000 is moonlight. That's what it equates to, is moonlight. Whereas 5 to 5,500 is hazy weather. That's the illumination you get. And then 7,000, which we're not going, is an overcast sky. So, we're looking for a bang for the buck, but the reason we do demonstration projects is because we want to demonstrate to the public what something's going to look like. I really can't support something totally different than what we demonstrated. I don't mind a mixed blend in the neighborhoods, especially if he can shield especially those folks who think that they're being affected by it. But on the main streets, the main road in Seacoast Shores Boulevard, we put these there. Not one complaint. We put them in front of the recreation building. Not one complaint. I mean, I want to remind the board again, we did this once with turbines. We took folks to see one in Hull. And no, that's not a problem. Let's do it. Then we put in a bigger turbine. We had a ton of complaints. Don't know whether that would have happened if we put the small one in, but at least we know that we actually did a demonstration project and we actually did the 6,000 lumens on those roads. I'm only one of 4 votes here, but I think if we did a mixed blend here, it would be appropriate. specifically with the demonstration project.
I just want to make sure we're clear on one thing, though. There's a difference between the color and the brightness. And what I'm talking about is the color rendition. When you talk about the 4,000 kelvins, that's the color. That's not the brightness of the fixture. We can have bright fixtures that have a more, a warmer color versus the bluer, harsher color. And that's what I'm suggesting here, is that we could have bright fixtures that have the 4,300 Kelvin, or I would actually advocate for the 3,500 Kelvin, because I understand that we've got the demonstration projects, but the two projects, one of them was in a commercial area where there's no residents nearby. The other one was on a main boulevard, which receives a lot of traffic, and you may not get a lot of feedback from residents in the area simply because of the fact that it is a high-traffic area and there are other factors at play. When we start putting these into the neighborhoods and on the side streets, we may see a very different response to what we've seen thus far. So that's why I'm suggesting we err on the side of caution and go with the warmer colors. Brightness, we can choose a range of brightness even within the colors, but those are the two issues we have to juggle, and I'm suggesting simply that we go with the warmer colors, the lower Kelvin figure. If we need to have a brighter fixture, we can do that.
Well, and Mr. Chairman, I'm going along with what you're saying. In the neighborhoods and in the side streets, we'll go with the lower thing. But if you look at the picture they provided, don't look up at the light, look at the street. And in the one on the right, which is the 6,000 K color, I believe the street itself is much better illuminated. If you look at the other one, the street itself is not as illuminated. And that's the effect that we're trying to get, the street illuminated.
But as it notes here, the one on the left actually has lower lumens, meaning it's not as bright as the one on the right.
That's correct, that's what I'm saying. But I'm looking at the road, and the 6,000 K provides the road a better visibility.
If I can, in that photo, what you probably do have is the blend that you are referring to, because if you looked at the light on the left, that might be more suitable for a narrower residential area where the sidewalk is not important to illuminate. And what we did in that is not just the change of the color temperature, but includes that full cutoff shield. So that person's home has no light shining into the living room or bedroom. So.
Well, I think Kevin has a point, to a point, in the sense that if you're talking about the Stop and Shop lights, the Davisville lights, certain areas of Main Street, not every area of Main Street, I mean, certainly not from here, maybe the intersection of Palmer Avenue and Palmer Avenue, where it curves like that. But not, I would think 28A would be a neighborhood, because it's mostly all homes, so you really wouldn't want those 6,000 kelvins there. So if we could come to maybe just the really major intersections in town that you would like with the 6,000, and maybe keep the rest of it to the 4,000 or 4,300, whatever it is. I would think that would make sense. I could go with that, because I think those main intersections really do need the hospital lights, the Jones Road and Gifford Street lights like that. Very busy intersections should be well lit, especially because people still do walk at night in the dark.
One last point, and you bring up a good point. We cannot afford to put more streetlights. I can't tell you how many times I get questions from folks. Well, we have one at the intersection of my street. Can you put one on the other side? And at this point in time, I don't think we're entertaining that. But what I'm saying is, if we get one that's a little bit brighter and it's not going to affect folks, and that's what they want, I think that's really what we want to give them, is what they want.
Well, I think we have to remember too, we can't add to what we have. We can only.
I agree with you.
We can only replace what we have. We can't add streetlights under this plan.
Right.
But isn't our decision this evening that it's not going to just be the one number? I mean, there's flexibility in it. I mean, some are going to be 35 and some are going to be 6,000 is our decision this evening.
Or 43.
Or 43.
So
I mean, our motion does not have to indicate how many of the 35, it's just to give that range.
No, because that can be worked out
Exactly.
between now
Yeah.
and the bid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is there
so I mean,
time
we
to do
really
that?
don't have to decide where the 6,000 go and the 3,500. We just have to set our range. Isn't that our point
And
this
if I may
evening?
suggest, I think rather than for us to try to decide this, obviously,
Right.
we just need to come up with a general policy and some agreement. I think it'll be up to the town engineer working with the Cape Light Compact to
That's right.
determine those areas, as Ms. Flynn noted, there are going to be some very high-traffic areas that perhaps would warrant the 6,000 Kelvin color temperature, and then when we get deep into neighborhoods, perhaps to the 3,500 Kelvin. And maybe there's a place in between on some of the higher traffic roads, which are still within neighborhoods that might have 4,000 Kelvin. And maybe that's what we're looking for here in terms of the mix.
And I just have one comment. Whoever sent us the report from the city of Pittsburgh, who did a complete research project on these LED lights for the whole city of Pittsburgh, it's about 113 pages long with lots of pictures. It was absolutely wonderful to read and really gave me a much different perspective on how to approach this whole idea of LED lights. The most fascinating thing was how they used the LED lights to create a different shape of a building. I mean, it was pretty amazing. If you don't have that study, Rip, I can email it to you, because somebody emailed it to us.
Can I just one more? So, if we formulate a motion, we're not giving you specific numbers, we're just gonna give you the idea of the
Of the
range,
mix.
and then that can be determined at another time.
If you would word it in such a way that you would direct those Exhibit A provisions, the special terms and conditions, to be worked out with the town engineer, that's what we've been doing, and we'll continue to do that to your satisfaction.
Okay, so I'd make a motion that we approve the LED.
Excuse me, Mr. Murphy,
Oh,
just
yeah.
before we make any
okay.
motions, I'd like to open it up to public comment to see if anyone would like to comment about this. We'll start towards the back, right, and work our way to the left, so. I'd just like to give the public the opportunity to influence the board before we make any decisions.
Good evening. Thank you. Ron Zweig. I'm the Falmouth representative on the Cape Light Compact. And I'd just like to say I've been following the streetlight discussions there very closely for a couple of years in terms of how we can save towns in terms of energy use as well as cost. And this program is an excellent step, I think, for us to take. And from a personal viewpoint, when I've looked at these lights, and I can see some from my bedroom, okay, the warmer the better, okay? It's a very different look, basically. It's like the light in this room versus the light you like in your living room. Oh, that light's kind of nice. But basically, this is a very clear, good light in here, but it's a little bit cool compared to what we're used to looking at in town. So, but anyway, from my tracking with the Cape Light Compact, I think it's a very good initiative. Thank you.
Nancy Hayward, West Falmouth. I commented on streetlights once before. I will say that I'm somewhat confused between Cape Light Compact. I thought NSTAR and Siemens took care of our streetlights, but I'm not going to go into that. I'm glad Ms. Flynn mentioned West Falmouth, because she may be aware of lighting in West Falmouth, on West Falmouth Highway, which is a state road, and I don't know whether that makes any difference or not. West Falmouth Highway is in a historic district, and West Falmouth Highway in the past has had what are called helmet fixtures with a regular Edison electric bulb type thing in it. This is not going to be that. I have not seen anything in the area of the Gus Canty Recreation Center that is a light, which I wanted to see in the historic district on West Falmouth Highway in West Falmouth. There is an intersection at Old Dock Road and West Falmouth Highway, which has a multitude of various lights in that area between the West Falmouth Market and the road and whatever else has lights there. We can talk about the birds and wildlife all we want. We have overlit skies. And I just want to say that the lights that I have seen, as I say, at Gus Canty Recreation are sort of overkill for West Falmouth Highway through West Falmouth and the West Falmouth Historic District. Thank you very much.
Mr. Latimer?
I'm Richard Latimer. I'm a voter from Precinct 1. The concern for this board should be solely cost to the public and safety, period. Get the most bang for the buck you can get. Questions of aesthetics, just remember the Latinism, de gustibus non disputandum est. What's ugly to somebody else might be beautiful to me. So if we're talking about color, you're not even talking about color, you're talking about hue. You know, it's all white light, and you want to get the most of it you can for the buck, and that should be your sole criteria. Thank you.
Mr. Finley?
Yeah, I brought this up before. There's different levels of light that should be tested in different neighborhoods. You've said we had demonstration products, but all you've demonstrated are the 6,000s. I think a place like Seacoast Shores is an obvious place to demonstrate the ones with lesser lumens down side streets, and maybe 28A, because the people really ought to know what they're paying for before they pay for it. It isn't going to take that many lights of the other variety for people to be able to go and see. They haven't been demonstrated, just the 6,000, so it's really not complete. Thanks.
Anyone else?
I just wanted to make one more comment. My understanding is these are all dark skylights. You know, they're down, they never are brightened above, which we see all the time. I mean, I can see from where I live, the lights at Stop and Shop, because they go right up to the sky. And that being all dark sky lighting, this will be very, very nice in the town.
All right, then.
I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we approve an LED street lighting project for the bid with the range of the color to be, and the numbers to be, well, the range of the color would be from 3,500, what's the word I'm looking for? K color? Color temperature, to 6,000 color temperature. And the numbers and the locations for the variety of those temperatures and colors would be determined by the Town of Falmouth's Engineering Department. And that might include some meetings in specific areas of town that might have input for the Engineering Department. So I'll leave it as simple as that.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Does that satisfy the requirements, the guidance that you folks need?
I think it's excellent. I'm very happy to have your positive vote.
Okay. All right. With that, then, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Unanimous. Thank you. All right, next item on our agenda is to discuss and/or vote changes to the Affirmative Action Code. This was brought to the board a few months back, and there was a request at the time to have it reviewed with personnel and legal to determine if it was appropriate And it is now back before us. We do have here this evening our Personnel Director, our Equity Affirmative Action Officer, and the Chair of the Affirmative Action Committee. If anyone has any questions.
Good evening.
Mr. Spivey, good evening.
I'm George Spivey, the Equity Affirmative Action Officer for the town of Falmouth and the Falmouth Public Schools. Just like to, some of you may remember the words of a song from Otis Redding or Sam Cooke. It's been a long time coming, but a change is going to come. And it's been a long time coming for the provisions to upgrade the Affirmative Action Code. But it's important that we take the time to consider these changes. To create a document that is workable and considers the past, present, and future is very, very important. We've made presentations in the past, and I'd like to thank everyone, the members of the Affirmative Action Committee, No Place for Hate Committee, the town manager, Julian Suso, Heather Harper, Kevin Murphy, Denise Coleman, Personnel Director, for their input, Frank Duffy, because what we have done is to take a really close look at the document that was created in 1991 to see whether it actually works. And so what we've tried to do is to create a document that does work for now and in the future. I have to state that I really have to give the credit for these developments to one of our youngest member of the Affirmative Action Committee, Andrew Putnam, who's the chairperson, and also to Denise Coleman, our Personnel Director, who have brought about these divisions. And so to everyone, thank you very, very much for your input, and Andrew Putnam will share with you the key elements of the Affirmative Action Code revisions. Thank you.
For full disclosure, Mr. Putnam is my son.
Good
Mr.
evening.
Chairman.
And thank you, George, for the very kind words. And George shouldn't sell himself short. He's been a driving force in this as well, and it's been a pleasure and an honor serving next to him for the last 3 years. So, last time we had presented this before the board, concerns were raised, and we listened. And we decided, of course, to get together with our town manager, Julian Suso, Personnel Director, Denise Coleman, and, of course, at the time, Chairman Kevin Murphy, and work on a document that would not only conform to what was necessary under the laws of the state and the federal government, but also a document that would work well for the town of Falmouth going forward. As George said, we wanted to consider the past, the present, and the future with this document. In 1991, the Affirmative Action Town Code was adopted by the Board of Selectmen per a court mandate. There was a lawsuit in the town, and the court had mandated that we must have this document and we must have a full-time affirmative action officer within the town. So this document is, of course, being updated pursuant that court order, basically. You'll notice, of course, since the last time this document was brought before you, it's been significantly reduced in size. So there was a lot of restructuring of the document, and Denise Coleman had done a lot of research, and she basically put together not only the ideas that were brought forward by the committee, but also structured it in a way that kind of modeled after what other towns have done for their own policies. It didn't need to be extensive. It didn't need to be overly wordy. It really just needed to make its point, and that's what it does now. The changes that have been put into this document, the important pieces that really we want to make sure that you, the board, are aware of, is we've added in, of course, let me make sure I'm looking at the right part here. What we've done, of course, is we've condensed a lot of it, got rid of all the unnecessary parts. There used to be a provision in the town code for the board to put together a hearing board, taking members of the Affirmative Action Committee and turning them into an actual hearing body for when there were complaints made and someone wanted to go further than just lodging the complaint, but actually wanted to have a hearing. We have never done that. In the history of this document being in place, the board has never put together that body, and now, of course, there are provisions in contracts with the unions, as well as policies set forth by the personnel department. That kind of takes care of those issues when they do arise, and that was something that was unnecessary, along with a lot of other things. What we added into here, of course, was we wanted to add in protected classes in terms of discrimination. So what we've added in for those classes is sexual orientation, gender identity. We've added in marital status, and of course we've also added in genetic information. These are areas that were not in there, and in fact, Denise surprised me. I didn't even know genetic information was a protected class, and it's actually on the state laws. And of course, all these other groups are in the state laws as well. They are protected classes in the state of Massachusetts. What we've also done, of course, is we've clarified a couple things with this document. We've clarified and made it very clear and as simple as can be, where does an employee go when they want to lodge a complaint? Where do they go when they feel that they've been discriminated against? And it's been stated very clearly, as you can see in Section 5, discrimination complaints. It used to be a much larger section of the town code before we condensed that down. It used to actually take up almost 2 pages. So now it's been condensed. It's been very clearly stated. If you want to lodge a complaint, this is the process you follow. And of course, being that this is a document that is handed out to all employees and posted for all employees within the town, that makes it a lot better. Rather than going through 25 pages, you've got 2 pages worth for them to read, and a very small section just states if you want to lodge a complaint, X, Y, Z, done. If you turn to the next page, you'll notice what we also did was we kind of condensed things there as well. With roles and responsibilities, we wanted to ensure that it was clearly stated what the roles and responsibilities were for the affirmative action officer, as well as the affirmative action committee. One of the things that I noticed when I came onto the committee was there was no definition in terms of what we were supposed to do. Really the only thing we knew was that we acted in an advisory capacity to George as our affirmative action officer. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to expand that. We decided to add in here that the affirmative action committee would actually set policy which you, the board, would approve. And that gives the committee a little more room to breathe and kind of allows the committee to stretch its wings a little. So in the future, the committee can come back to the board and say, you know, these are some issues we've noticed. We'd love to take care of them. We want to put them in our policy and set this as our guidelines for the next year of things we want to take care of in conjunction with the affirmative action officer and you, the Board of Selectmen. So we're very happy to put that in. We also, of course, set an actual time period for when that would happen, and that would be July of every year, being that the terms for the Affirmative Action Committee members always expire in June. In terms of the Affirmative Action Officer, it's the same exact description as was in the old town code. The only difference is that we did put in that there would be regular updates from the Affirmative Action Officer, and this just ensures that the committee is going to receive, you know, whoever may replace George in the future, of course, that they would know that it's clearly stated this is their duty to update the committee and make sure the committee is informed on what's going on with the town. And we kept it sort of vague. We had a discussion, of course, about issues in the town, and sometimes there are cases that George is dealing with, and the details are just things that can't be talked about at that moment, and that's very understandable. Sometimes there are sensitive situations that are being taken care of, but the committee at least wants to be updated, and just having the general knowledge, this is how many cases we've dealt with this year, this is how many have been solved, this is how many went to court, this is how many were dealt with in this manner. Just having that general information helps the committee in terms of formulating a direction for the town. Other than that, you'll notice, of course, like I said, that everything's sort of been condensed down. It's still pretty much the same document, just with the necessary tweaks, getting rid of all the extra stuff that the committee has never done in its 20-plus years of being around, and of course adding in those protected classes that are already recognized on the state and federal level. The last piece I want to give to you, the board, is that the biggest concern that was given to us last time was we don't want to be the first to do something. Well, this document is ensuring that we're not the first. As I said, Denise Coleman, she's done a lot of great work with us, and she looked at what other towns have done, and this is very similar to what other towns have done in terms of drafting a policy for affirmative action and dealing with HR and personnel. So other than that, I would be more than happy to entertain questions from the board. I believe that George is also able to entertain questions, and Denise is here to also entertain questions.
Questions from the board?
I guess I was a little bit behind that I didn't see the other, so now that I have the proposed one, I don't have anything to really compare it to, so I would say that if this is reduced, that's fine. How many cases does affirmative action have within a year? How many cases are reported to you?
I believe that's a question for George.
Is that, yeah, okay.
It can vary. I work for the town and also the schools, so cases of harassment, discrimination can come up in both areas. It can range from 2, 4, 6. Sometimes there is, I would think, an abundance of complaints, and sometimes I get a lull. But there's always something that I'm usually dealing with in terms of harassment, discrimination, and sometimes the investigations take a period of time. Yeah.
Okay.
So it could range from on a monthly basis, maybe 1 or 2 over the year, possibly 5, 12.
And then do the cases then go on to court if you haven't settled them?
What happens is I may be the first level of concern for an individual. If I don't resolve something, it can go to a higher level. It could be considered by the superintendent of schools, or it could come to the town manager. Okay. So what I try to do is to resolve issues at the lowest level possible.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? I have no questions. I appreciate brevity and the fact that this has been condensed. It makes the code smaller, which is always a good thing. If we can accomplish the same thing in fewer words, it makes it easier for the general public to understand what we're doing as well. So I thank you all for that. If nothing from the board, I'll entertain questions from the audience. Hearing none. How would the board like to proceed? Mr. Murphy?
Mr. Chairman, I do appreciate the changes that were made to this. Specifically, there was a recruitment aspect of the former one. And if I can read it directly, the town will implement its affirmative action efforts by ensuring that all employment decisions are basis of merit without regard to race, color, sex, disability, religion, sexual orientation, gender identification, marital status, military veteran status, national origin, ancestry, genetic information, or age as outlined below. And I think that is exactly the way that we should look at it, that it should be neutral, and that none of those things should hinder anybody from getting any job in our community, but also should not be at the detriment to another one of those groups. So I think that was well formulated, and I appreciate the efforts that all of you who worked on this made to put this together. So I'd make a motion to approve the new affirmative action proposed revisions on this the proposed revisions. I'm looking for Chapter 251 of the town code.
So we have a motion?
Second.
We have a second? Any discussion on that?
I just want to make a comment. I think when you have a good policy that's well-written and some training with employees, I think you could even consider a considerable decrease in any complaints that might come forward as a result of it. So this is a good step.
All right. Any further comments? All right. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Unanimous. Thank you all very much.
And if I could just say one last thing, I wanted to thank the board for the opportunity of being on the Affirmative Action Committee for the last 3 years. As you had said earlier, Mr. Chairman, There are 3 vacancies on the Affirmative Action Committee. I'm going to work hard to find people to fill them, but I did not apply for reappointment in order to better serve the town on the Cape Cod Commission at this time in that capacity. So I was, again, very, I feel honored to have been given the opportunity. I'm very glad that the Affirmative Action Committee gave me 2 years as their chairman. And I can't say enough praise about working with George for the last 3 years. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next item on our agenda, to discuss and vote to appoint constable. This is carried over from our last meeting several weeks ago. We have the 2 applicants. We have the recommendations from the chief. And in your packet as well, actually it was an email from earlier today, I apologize. I had noticed in the packet Friday that we did not have, per item 3 of our policy, a statement as to the moral character of the applicant signed by 5 reputable citizens, one of whom shall be an attorney. And we do have those, are now, that was emailed to us earlier today. I don't know if the board is prepared at this time to make a decision, but we have all the necessary information if we choose to proceed to appoint a constable this evening. We do have at this time 4 constables, and provided to us in our packet was the board's decision several years ago to establish the number of constables at 5, so we have 1 vacancy, and it would be a 3-year term that would expire on June 30, 2016.
I make a motion that we put both names in a nomination, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to put both names in a nomination. Discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? None? All right, then by roll call, Ms. Moffett.
Mr. Braga?
Mr. Murphy.
Braga.
Ms. Flynn.
Mr. Braga?
And I will make it unanimous. Mr. Braga is our 5th constable. Congratulations, sir. And we thank also Mr. Ruda for applying and appreciate his willingness to serve the people of Falmouth. All right, and with that, we are at the minutes of meetings. I would like to just bring the board's attention. There's a line item that's going to appear now in all of our agendas. It specifically says vote to release / not to release minutes of executive session. The board is obligated to review on a regular basis the prior minutes from executive sessions to determine if the need to maintain any privacy or any withholding those minutes from the public is still necessary. For example, with regards to litigation, the minutes are often not released to the public until the litigation is completely resolved. And so as a reminder to us and to Town Manager's office, we'll have this item on here. There may not be any minutes in our packet from prior executive sessions that need to be considered for release, but this will be here so that we have that reminder that we will have to review those on a regular basis. We do have this evening minutes public session for June 10, 2013.
Move the minutes of June 10th.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the minutes as presented. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? All right. Unanimous. And that brings us to the summary of actions. I will read through these.
I also have in my packet the minutes of July 12th as well. July 12th, we're not even there. That's former information, that's right.
Okay.
I got it. It went with something else that was in there. Okay. It's out of order here for me.
Okay.
I made it out of order, not anybody else.
So I'm going to go through the summary of actions. If anyone would like to hold one of them, let me know. We have a vote to support municipal applications to the Community Preservation Committee regarding the Sandwich Road Fields, beach gates and improvements, skate park expansion, and Lawrence Academy. Approve request for sign variance, St. Barnabas Church, Lobster on the Lawn. Approve request for wedding permit, Surf Drive Beach, Tareen O'Reilly, August 31, 2013. Approve request for special event, yoga in the park, Marina Park, August 20, 2013.
Hold what we want to say, we want to discuss,
Well, it's for the board, actually. Do you have objections to this approval?
Oh, no.
All right. Approve request for special event and Sunday entertainment, Mashpee Wampanoag Powwow, Barnstable County Fairgrounds.
Hold.
We'll have a hold on that. Approve request for one-day liquor license. We'll have a hold on that. Approve town manager attendance at the 2013 annual ICMA conference. Execute amended Form 43, Murphslicks Incorporated, doing business as Murphy's Package Store, and execute amended letter to Division of Marine Fisheries, Daniel Ward Aquaculture License. Yeah, we're going to hold that. Does any member of the board want to hold the yoga in the park, or are we
Yes,
satisfied?
I'd like to hold it and see what George would like to say about it.
Then we'll hold that. So I have, these items should have been numbered. I apologize, folks. We'll make it a little bit easier. So I need a motion to support the vote to support municipal applications, the signed variance for St. Barnabas, the wedding permit on Surf Drive Beach, the town manager's attendance, and the amended Form 43.
So move.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for those items. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? None, it's unanimous. All right, the first item that was held is the special event Yoga in the Park, Marina Park. Ms. Flynn.
Yes, I'd like to invite George up to speak on that.
Mr. Trudeau.
George Trudeau.
Hi, I'm George Trudeau, a town employee. I don't live in town. And I'm a yoga teacher, and I've actually been teaching a class here. And we'd like to hold this event. And I'd like Virginia Ryan of Yoga Neighborhood to speak to us about it.
Good evening. I'll be quick.
Sorry, if you could identify yourself for the
Yes.
record, please.
My name is Virginia Ryan Hake. I live in Katuitt, and I founded Yoga Neighborhood 3 years ago, and we provide free yoga so far in the town of Hyannis, in the village of Hyannis, in Katuitt and in Mashpee, and we've just started a program here in Falmouth. And so we'd like to have this free event on August 19th. We'd like you to waive the charge to use the space at the park. And the point of it is to just bring the community together, introduce them to Yoga Neighborhood, and hopefully get some awareness, because we're going to be starting a free yoga program for teenagers at Gus Canty in the fall. And so it's to try and get some awareness and support from the community.
Mr. Murphy?
I might say that this says August 20th, but that's really the rain date. The actual date is August 19th.
It's August 19th. Yeah.
Is that correct? That was the typo. Yeah, I just picked that up.
Mr. Murphy?
I'd make a motion to approve the yoga, but the board approved a fee waiver policy last week, and asking for it tonight would not be in the terms of the policy that we approved. So you need to go through the chain of command, and that would be via the town manager's office.
Okay.
And also worth noting is the fact that the application we have before us this evening does not ask for a waiver of the fee. It's simply an application to hold the event, so you would have to come back to the town manager for that.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the yoga in the park, and the date is August 19 with a rain date of August 20. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Unanimous, thank you.
Thank you. Hope you'll join us.
Someday.
All right, we had a hold for the special event and Sunday entertainment, the Mashpee Wampanoag Powwow.
That was, I just wanted information about, is there alcohol going to be served? And I thought there was not, but then as I continued to read, I thought there was, so I needed some assistance with that.
I know there's entertainment
Yes.
license that is being requested here. I don't think there's any alcohol that,
There's no request for an alcohol, a one-day liquor license.
correct.
They're just for entertainment.
Thing over here.
They would have to make a special request for alcohol.
Okay,
That's something different.
okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
All right, so then your question has been answered?
Yes, thank
All
you.
right. Do we have a motion then?
I move approval.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the special event and Sunday entertainment for the Mashpee Wampanoag Powwow at the Barnstable County Fairgrounds, July 5 through July 7 of 2013.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? None. All right, and we have a request for a one-day liquor license, Falmouth Historical Society. Mr. Murphy, you held this.
Yes, I wanted to do a disclosure, Mr. Chairman. I'm the holder of an all-alcoholic seasonal liquor license.
Okay.
And I'll make, with that being said, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? It's unanimous. And the last item held, execute amended letter to the Division of Marine Fisheries, Daniel Ward Aquaculture License.
I held this, Mr. Chairman, to do a disclosure that I own a restaurant that features shellfish. With that being said, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? None, unanimous. All right, and that brings us to, we have this to sign as well, thank you. That brings us to the individual selectmen's reports. Does anyone have anything they would like to share this evening?
I have a lot of things to share. It's
All right.
been a very busy week. This past Wednesday, Selectman Moffett and Town Manager Julia Suso and I attended the tour of the MMR, the Mass Military Reservation. It was a 3-hour tour. There were about, 25 or so people there. And they toured the treatment facilities, which of course have been cleaning up the pollution sites around the base for a number of years now. We also toured the impact area. And while we were out there, some of their laboratory people were there testing the wells. They do constant testing of the wells for any contaminants, and every year now the number of contaminants has really decreased. The other thing that we saw, we went to the area of the unexploded ordnance, and we actually had to sign waivers to go out there in case anything blew up, I guess, while we were there. But it's amazing, they have ordnance all the way back to World War I that they have found on the base. Some came from naval ships, World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War. It was just an amazing tour. I think the major thing was to really see the activities that were going on at the base and how they were continuing with their cleanup plan, trying to keep the Sagamore lens, which is our source, one of our main sources of drinking water, clean of all contaminants, so that when we draw, because we do draw about 1 million gallons of water a day from the military reservation as part of our water system. So it was very good to have that tour. On the next day, it was the first annual Coastal Conference, and it was put on by Webner. Tana Marie Rogers was the conference lead. There were, I would say, some people in the room were there. I would say there were well over 200 people there from all over the Cape. And it was really about linking science with local solutions. So all of the talks, and there were many, but they weren't long. They were maybe a half hour, 35 minutes, so that some of the scientists could speak and you weren't bored. I mean, you weren't distracted because the information was so relevant and so helpful all the way through. And then Commissioner Kimmel, who's the Commissioner of Department of Energy and the Environment, was there, and of course our nutrient management bylaw came up for discussion, and we all know that it's in conference waiting for the budget to be voted on by the House and the Senate. I think Commissioner Kimmel was really talking about a number of activities that they're trying to regulatory reform is really what he talked about, to make the regulations more accessible, easier for people to understand, and not quite as, I didn't bring the whole piece of paper, unfortunately, where I had written down all the comments he made, but what they're trying to do at the state level is to have more user-friendly regulations that people can understand that are not so restrictive. And then on Friday morning, the Cape Cod Selectmen and Councilors Association met in Falmouth Friday morning. It was in Falmouth to make it more available for the selectmen from the vineyard to attend, but the winds were so high and strong that the ferries weren't running that hour of the morning, so the vineyard selectmen didn't make it. So we had a very interesting meeting with the two legislators, Senator Dan Wolf and Representative Sarah Peak, who is now the co-chair of the Committee on Municipalities. And she told us that every home rule petition now from any town in the Commonwealth has to go through her committee. And what they've done is they've made it a priority that when a home rule petition comes through, they deal with it right away. They don't delay, they don't send it to committee and let it, just lay there forever and ever. They try to get an immediate response, so they know that towns are waiting, that's why they file them. And they're doing, of course, now they're also dealing with the minimum wage up there, but they gave us a very good summary of what's going on. And then Friday afternoon, same crew, all went to the Mass Maritime Academy, and we had the major announcement regarding Open Cape and Cape Net, that it was alive, although it's actually been alive because it's the MMR, the Air National Guard, has been accessing Open Cape since April. So it is up and running, but it isn't totally available to everybody yet. But that was the real, it's here, we're going to go. It's very soon. The governor was there, the Senate president, the whole delegation was there. And what was amazing was the talk by Admiral Gurnan, who's I don't know what his title is, the superintendent, I guess, of the academy, I don't know. But the MMA, the Mass Maritime, is one of the most prestigious educational institutions in the country. It is like one of the top 10. And all of their graduates, each year, especially this year, they all have a job, every single one of them. By the time they get to graduation, they've already searched the job market. They already know what they want to do. And the average salary of a graduate the first year in a job is $74,000. I thought that was rather amazing. And of course, a lot of it's in engineering, of course, and there are lots of jobs now in engineering. And he was saying that the MIT educational staff that they have professors from MIT. They make $60,000 at the academy, and here the graduates are going out as brand new graduates and earning $74,000 a year. But it was, and then we had the opportunity of going in the simulator, which if you've never been in it, you can go over there and stand in it. It's like you were the captain of the ship, and it is so computerized that you can bring up hurricanes, lightning storms, any port in the world. You can be in Hawaii, you can be in San Francisco. We were in New York Harbor, we were going under the Verrazano Bridge in New York Harbor, and all of a sudden a storm came up and the waves were coming over, and truly you have that, you know what it's like, you have that sensation, you have to hold on. Well, actually, if you close your eyes, you know you're just standing still in this room. But it was really, we were in the simulator for about 15 minutes, and then we had to rescue a couple of people in the sea, and the waves were breaking out, and we had to go rescue these two people. It was fabulous. You should really go over there, take your kids. It's an experience. So that was our week, Wednesday through Friday. We did a whole lot of things, and and then the final was Saturday evening, the Day of Portugal. I think Becky Moffett and I went, and we was there for the flag raising. I wasn't planning to stay, but I got all wrapped up in all the celebration and all the people, and we ended up, Andrew, you were there. And the whole program and the dancing, it was absolutely fantastic. And all the Portuguese food they made, we had the best time. So we had quite a week from Wednesday through Saturday this week. Being around our town and representing our town in various venues, and it was a lot of fun.
Very good.
I had the opportunity to make a couple of those events, but one other one that Mrs. Flynn forgot was the police recognition.
Oh, yes, police recognition.
On Tuesday, last Tuesday, when there were officers in the town of Falmouth that were honored because of their service, and folks who know that Falmouth sent officers to Boston when after the bombing at the marathon, and they were involved in the capture of, in some form or fashion, of the folks who perpetrated that. So it was quite a nice event as well. Thank you.
Thank you for mentioning that. I didn't go back as far as
And I would
Tuesday.
think that I would start my report, and I would repeat Mrs. Flynn's, and then I would add Mr. Murphy's, and that's what I did for the week.
Thank you. Just a couple of things that I'd like to make mention of, or one thing actually. I did have a conversation actually with a member of or a board member from the farmers market, and they have some concerns that they feel as though they're being pressured to violate some contracts, and they're concerned about the liability that could incur. So we may see on our agenda in the near future, the next month or so, an agenda item. We might have some members or the entire member of the Farmers Market Board here with us to discuss the issue and try to resolve this. So just as an FYI. I've also been in communication with the chair of the planning board, Pat Kerfoot, regarding a potential retreat with the planning board. As you know, we've done the joint meetings with them several times a year, and they're actually suggesting that we might be more productive if we were to hold a formal retreat instead of trying to schedule something in the evening. That way it would give us perhaps some more time and a more relaxed atmosphere, and we might be able to accomplish more than we've been able to accomplish in meetings past. So.
Could I just add to that? They were at, Brian Curry and Pat Kerfoot and Marlene McCollum were at the Coastal Conference, so I happened to have lunch with them on Friday, and we talked about that. And you know how we need this visioning for Falmouth, particularly the area of Main Street from Shore Street Extension on down. The planning board has had a lot of concerns about getting that whole area really looked at, as well as the Marine District, you know, over by Falmouth Harbor. And to really get the two boards together, as you mentioned, to do some visioning for the rest of Main Street and for that Marine District, and just work together on what we see as possibilities for the future of what we can do to revitalize those areas. So that would be good, and in a workshop kind of setting during the day.
With that, Mr. Suso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board will recall that pursuant to a request, your request at a recent meeting, I directed a letter to state officials regarding the continuing concern for the deteriorating condition of the MassDOT-owned town bus depot. A letter from Senate President Therese Murray has been received in support of encouraging the Massachusetts Department of Transportation to initiate this important process. We greatly appreciate Senator Murray's continuing leadership and support for this, as she has communicated to the board, as well as the assistance of Representatives Tim Madden and David Vieira. And a copy has been of that, of course, transmitted to the board for your information, along with my initial letter, which you had directed. Also, just to confirm the several comments by Selectman Flynn and other members of the board regarding those multiple activities of the past week, I guess, yeah, starting with the police recognition ceremony, continuing with the MMR groundwater tour, which was indeed fascinating, and also the celebrating the completion of the Cape Fiber optic network, which we look forward to further unfolding. Was very appreciative of being able to attend those. Also, as a reminder, I wanted to confirm the board will be meeting, this Board of Selectmen, of course, for a morning retreat beginning at 8:30 a.m. on Saturday, June 22nd at the main library. I do look forward to joining the board for this very important process. And we anticipate, as we have noted, a second board retreat at a date to be set potentially in September for the purpose of the annual update of the town's strategic plan. And some information has been transmitted to the board in furtherance of that. Also, members of the board, I'm delighted to hold up a copy of this cardboard check received today by Betsy Gladfelder of the Town Conservation Commission, representing a grant of $55,000 from the Massachusetts Environmental Trust. And just a couple background comments on that. The board will recall that Betsy and Jen McKay, our Conservation Administrator, made a presentation, of course, to this board, as well as at your request to the Finance Committee, actually several months ago now, and with your concurrence, did transmit on behalf of the town a grant request. We were notified today of the funding, and as you will note, Betsy was kind enough to bring this large paper check back, and I think she's probably going to display this again at a Concom meeting later this week. And just in summary, Mr. Chairman, if I may, just a few comments. The grant, as the board will recall, of course, is to undertake, there's a long title here, but to design plans and permitting for the lower bog dam removal to improve fish passage and habitat restoration along the Coonamessett River. This is the first in several steps in furtherance of that. Again, I've noted Conservation Commission Chair Betsy Gladfelter and her colleagues on Concom. Betsy really did much of the heavy lifting here, working with Jen McKay, our Conservation Administrator. And also, I want to acknowledge and thank two colleagues on staff, Chuck Martinson and Peter McConerty, for their fine work in the best tradition of teamwork between town departments in furtherance of this successful effort. The first phase of this project will open the free-flowing stream and improve river habitat over 0.28 river miles, and in addition, the 17 acres of the lower bog will be actively restored to support a diverse riverine ecosystem. So my compliments to all involved, and the noteworthy endorsement and authorization of this Board of Selectmen allowing it all to go forward. We do have some in-kind match for this, but there is not a cash match. It is in-kind staff work as represented by these many fine staff colleagues involved. So happy to acknowledge that, and it's an indication that the finish line is sometimes reached, even though it's a long process, and many people have been working in that regard. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Any correspondence that the board would like to highlight this week? There are a couple things I'd like to make note of. We did receive an email from someone concerned about dogs off-leash in BB Woods, and perhaps if the town manager would make a note of it. I don't think that BB Woods is a leash-free area, and one of the reasons why we have a dog park is precisely to provide dog owners an area where they can have their dogs off-leash and allowed to run in a controlled fashion. But apparently there have been some issues with dogs running free in BB Woods, and this particular email, I think it did also come to the town manager's office, so, but we'll make sure it gets forwarded to Mr. Suso so that perhaps the Department of Natural Resources may need to look at this, the animal control officer. The other thing, we did get an email from our Bikeways Committee regarding the first painting of sharrows on some of our streets, indicating shared use roads for those of you who are unfamiliar either on the board or with the general public, that bicycles are considered vehicles under state law, and sharrows are simply, it's a contraction for shared arrows. The idea being that they're arrows that are painted on the street to indicate that you're on a bikeway, and it's often been done in a variety of areas, and it's been shown that when sharrows are on a road that people do tend to be more aware of and more courteous to those who use bicycles as opposed to automobiles. So we now have some painted in Falmouth's roads, and hopefully there'll be more to come. So if there's no other correspondence, we will now entertain questions from the public and the press.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
This is an area that last week on your first meeting you had left, and I think it's an area where that I feel very uncomfortable for multiple reasons, and maybe you can discalm my discomfort of what we're looking for. I have some problems with potentially violating the open meeting law, that if folks bring forward an issue here to this Board of Selectmen, and it's not an agenda item, that folks on the other side of those issues did not have an opportunity to be heard, to be able to come forward. It is not the place of the Board of Selectmen, the entire board, to give scheduled, unscheduled opportunities at a Board of Selectmen's meeting. With all due respect, as the chairman, you're the one who sets the agenda, and I know that there is nobody that could be a member of the Board of Selectmen and just do this job by showing up on Monday nights. It's necessary to be able to hear from the public, but then the chairman has the opportunity to put something on the agenda. By merely providing public comment, I think we're putting things on the agenda that have not gone through the proper venting to be able to be prepared. And I keep in mind that our town charter calls for the Board of Selectmen to set policy and procedure. I'm very wary that folks would come forward at a Board of Selectmen's meetings and ask for something to occur, and the Board of Selectmen would direct the town manager to do so at a Board of Selectmen's meeting, and that is not our role. Our town charter does not provide for that. It provides for us to set policy and procedure. And I know you have leeway in establishing an agenda, but I think this is outside the realm of that leeway. That's a personal comment. I don't know what the rest of the board feels, but I have seen this in other communities, and it is not something that is productive on an ongoing basis, at least in my mind.
And your points are well taken, and if I may, first of all, let me apologize to the board. This is not, and hopefully clarify for the general public, entertain questions from the public and the press is precisely that. It is not supposed to be open mic night. And this board, in fact, has, several years ago, we had this discussion about should we have, folks, if you, just a moment, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions, but let me clarify this, please. The board did have the discussion about having an open public comment period, and the board at the time chose to reject the idea for the very reasons that you mentioned here, Mr. Murphy. But one of the things that the board did discuss, and it was a suggestion at the time, that we could provide a moment at the end of the meeting to entertain questions from the public and the press. And the object of this is not to give an open mic to folks. It is not to give someone the bully pulpit. And it is not to, as you say, and correctly so, to provide unscheduled time for the public to simply come in and bend the board's ear. It is an opportunity. We have had a meeting this evening. We've decided a number of issues. And if the press or the public have any questions about those issues, we can certainly try to answer them. If there are any concerns that the public has, they can certainly ask questions. But this is not an opportunity, again, it's not an open mic night. And again, I apologize to the board. Unfortunately, I had a personal issue last week where I had to leave early, and I was not here to moderate this portion of the meeting. Going forward, I'll ensure that this item is on the agenda only when I'm here, and we can, on a week-by-week basis, see how it works. But it was never intended to be an open mic night. It certainly is not intended to violate any aspect of the open meeting law, but simply to allow the press or the public to ask for some clarification or something from the board. And if we have to get back to them or have the town manager get back to them, then that certainly can be done.
Well, I agree with Kevin. I think that this is not an agenda item. I think this is changing the way we do business. And I think if we're going to change the way we do business, this has to be a discussion of the board. And we're going to be meeting Saturday, and it was very awkward last week, by the way, when you weren't here, and Doug handled the questions. Some people got up, I mean, it's just, it could go on for a long time. You could have 25 people come in here and not know it. And if you allowed 2 people to ask a question, you'd have to let 25 people ask a question. I think it really changes how we do business. And if we're going to do that, it should really happen with a discussion from the board and a consensus on the board, if that's the way. I don't think it has anything to do with setting the agenda. And as far as the press goes, normally, questions from the press would be asked after the meeting is adjourned. That usually never occurs during the course of a meeting. And if they have questions, they usually come up after the meeting and ask. So that's never been an agenda item in my time, anyway. So I have very strong concerns about this questioning. I think it's, I think it should be vetted by the whole board, and maybe we could take this up on Saturday when we're going to meet.
I think it's a Saturday discussion. I think any more discussion now could be said on Saturday.
In the effort to be productive in regard to this, is that, and I know that you are very open, in specifically tonight, you asked for comments on individual items before, in fact, anyone made a motion. So therefore, everything on our agenda had an opportunity to have comment. The only purpose we would serve in taking these comments would be outside of an agenda. And I'm really fearful that we crossed the line in the open public meeting law. What's happened in the past was a long time ago, and that was before the open meeting law changed. We have to be very cognizant of the open meeting law. And combine that with our charter, I really feel uncomfortable moving forward with this on an ongoing basis. But I'm just one of 5, so that's my rule for thought.
Well, I hear the board's concerns. I would like to remind everyone that we have in prior years done this. It hasn't necessarily been a formal item on the agenda. It's something that I added as I've added, for example, the Pledge of Allegiance. It's something that we've done, but we've not actually had it as a formal item on the agenda. I will entertain questions from the public, but I will remind the public, as I've just stated here, this is not open mic night. This is not an opportunity for you to get a bully pulpit. This is an opportunity for you to ask questions of the board, and if it's something that we perhaps need to put on a future agenda, we can, but I will shut folks down if you try to use this as an opportunity to start going on and on and on about something.
The key's recording.
I'm not recording yet, but I would like to.
So would you like you would like permission then to record the board?
Yes.
Are there any objections?
No.
Granted. Mr. Latimer, a question.
Two very brief points. For once, I agree with
Not points, Mr. Latimer, a question.
About what he just said.
Mr. Latimer, as I just said, this is an opportunity to ask questions of the board.
A request.
A request is not a question. You can ask a question. If you do not have a question, if you have a request of the board, you can do that at a later time. If you have a point you'd like to make, you can certainly approach any member of the board at another time or during a regularly published agenda item. And again, I apologize to the board for leaving you folks in this situation last week, but I am not going to allow an open mic situation. The board has already decided against that. Do you have a question?
Yes, my question is to Mr. Suso. My question is, have you approached the
This is a
Division of Fish
question
and
for
Wildlife?
Sir, Mr. Latimer.
Yes.
Questions for the board, not
Oh.
for the town manager. This is not the town manager's meeting.
Do you know whether Mr. Suso has approached the Division of Fish and Wildlife for assistance with the restoring the riverine
aspect of the Coonamessett River. And do you know whether he has approached Trout Unlimited for perhaps voluntary assistance in doing that work as they have done on the Quashnet River?
I would suggest that those are questions that might be better answered by the Conservation Commission, as they are the ones who received the grant to do the
Okay.
restoration work. So I would suggest you speak with them. Anyone in the public have questions?
I would question why you would want to limit this new openness as a board, because it has long been a complaint of many in this town that things are done behind closed doors, perhaps. And that's an endorsement as well.
That's not quite a question, Mr. Finneran. But again, questions. We're not trying to limit openness. Mr. Murphy and the rest of the board make some important points about the fact that we do have an agenda, and we're not trying to open up the microphone to anyone and everyone who would like to have a comment about something. Do we have questions from the public? All right, questions from the press? All right, I appreciate everyone's cooperation in this regard, and the board will take this up as a discussion as part of our retreat. It is a worthwhile discussion. And with that, we've reached the end of our agenda this evening.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.